January 3rd, 2026, 3:29 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm about to tell you about the most audacious military operation since the capture of Saddam Hussein. And unlike anything you've seen before, I'm going to tell you what happened from inside the room where President Trump watched it unfold in real time. Because here's what most people don't understand. When Trump said he watched this operation like a television show, he wasn't exaggerating. I'm going to walk you through what happened minute by minute, explosion by explosion, as Delta Force executed what military historians are already calling the most technically complex extraction in special operations history. But first, you need to understand who Delta Force is. Because these aren't just soldiers, they're ghosts. Delta Force, 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment, Delta, based at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. The exact number of operators is classified. Their commander's identity is classified. Even their budget is classified. What we do know is this: they specialize in missions where failure isn't an option and publicity is never desired. Hostage rescues, high-value target elimination, missions so sensitive that most of them will never be declassified in our lifetimes. Their resume includes the 2003 capture of Saddam Hussein, pulled from a spider hole in Iraq. Countless counterterrorism operations across Afghanistan and the Middle East targeting senior al-Qaeda leadership, the raid on Abu Sayyaf in Syria, and now the midnight extraction of a sitting head of state from a fortified compound in Caracas. But Operation Absolute Resolve, as this mission was codenamed, was different. This wasn't a desert compound or a mountain cave. This was the capital city of a sovereign nation. Maduro wasn't hiding in some remote location. He was in the heart of Caracas, protected by Venezuela's military inside Fort Tiuna, surrounded by anti-aircraft batteries and thousands of troops loyal to the regime. The planning for this operation didn't start days ago, it started months ago. In August 2025, the CIA inserted a small team into Venezuela. Not diplomats, not regular intelligence officers, paramilitary officers. Their job was simple but impossibly difficult. Build a complete picture of Nicolas Maduro's daily life. Where does he sleep? What does he eat? When does he move? Who does he trust? What are his vulnerabilities? These CIA officers spent months creating what intelligence analysts call a pattern of life assessment. They tracked his movements, they noted his schedule, they identified his security protocols, and, critically, they recruited an asset, someone inside Maduro's inner circle who could provide real-time updates on his exact location. While this human intelligence was being gathered, Delta Force was preparing. Somewhere in the United States, they built an exact replica of Maduro's compound. Every wall, every door, every steel barrier. The operators rehearsed the assault dozens of times. They practiced breaching reinforced steel doors. They timed every movement down to the second. They prepared for every possible contingency.
Trump approved the operation before Christmas. But they couldn't just go. The weather had to be perfect. Remember, this was a helicopter insertion into a hostile capital city, flying low over the Caribbean Sea, threading through mountain passes, navigating through clouds, all while maintaining complete radio silence to avoid detection. For days, the strike force sat ready. Delta operators, 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, the legendary Night Stalkers, the most skilled helicopter pilots in the world. They waited and waited. New Year's Eve came and went. Trump was at Mar-a-Lago in his tuxedo hosting a party, but his mind was on Venezuela. The weather wasn't right. Then, on Friday night, January 2nd, the forecast changed. A window opened, just barely. Low cloud ceiling, dangerous flying conditions, but flyable, for the Night Stalkers anyway. Trump gave the order, go. At 8 p.m. Eastern Time, the Armada launched. And when I say Armada, I mean it. Over 150 aircraft, B-1B Lancer bombers from Dice Air Force Base in Texas, F-22 Raptors, F-35 Lightning II stealth fighters, F-A-18 Super Hornets from aircraft carriers, EA-18 Growler electronic warfare planes to jam Venezuelan radars, E-2 Hawkeye early warning aircraft coordinating the entire operation, surveillance drones, and somewhere in that mix, an RQ-170 Sentinel, one of the CIA's most classified stealth drones, providing real-time overhead imagery. The aircraft deployed from 20 different locations across the Western Hemisphere, land bases, aircraft carriers, the USS Iwo Jima amphibious assault ship. This wasn't just a raid, this was a full-scale military operation. But here's where it gets interesting, because while all this was happening, Trump was sitting in a secure location at Mar-a-Lago, watching it unfold on live feeds. CIA Director John Ratcliffe on his left, Secretary of State Marco Rubio on his right, multiple screens showing different angles, drone feeds, helmet cameras from the operators, satellite imagery. He could see everything. Meanwhile, in Caracas, the night was quiet. Too quiet. Because hours before the assault helicopters even took off, U.S. Cyber Command had done something remarkable. They blacked out large sections of the city. Trump later said the city went dark due to a certain expertise that we have. Translation: American hackers shut down Venezuela's power grid in the exact areas where they needed darkness. At 1 a.m. Eastern Time, the MH-60M Blackhawks crossed into Venezuelan airspace. Flying low, dangerously low, skimming over the Caribbean Sea, radar-evading flight profiles, radio silence. Behind them, the sky was full of American warplanes, ready to provide cover if things went sideways. The aircraft approached Caracas from the north, using the terrain to mask their approach. Mountains, valleys, they threaded through gaps in the cloud cover that, according to General Dan Kane, only the most skilled aviators in the world could navigate.
At 1:15 a.m., Venezuelan air defenses detected something. Radar signatures, unidentified aircraft. They opened fire, and that's when the operation went kinetic. American helicopters returned fire with overwhelming force, door gunners lighting up anti-aircraft positions. The B-1 bombers, already in position, began their strikes. Fort Tuna, Venezuela's main military garrison, erupted in flames. The Generalissimo Francisco de Miranda Air Base, home to Venezuela's Army aviation, was hit. Multiple explosions, massive fireballs visible across the Caracas skyline. Social media exploded with videos, residents filming from their windows, explosions, American helicopters flying over the city, the sound of gunfire. But by the time those videos started circulating, the operation was already in its final phase. At approximately 1:30 a.m., the assault force touched down at Maduro's compound inside Fort Tuna. Delta Force operators fast-roped from the helicopters. Breaching charges detonated. The operators moved with terrifying precision. This wasn't their first time in this building. They'd practiced this exact assault dozens of times in their replica back in the States. Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, were asleep. They woke to explosions and gunfire. According to sources familiar with the operation, Maduro immediately tried to reach his panic room, a steel-reinforced safe room with blast doors. If he could get inside and seal those doors, the operation would become infinitely more complicated. But he didn't make it. Delta Force operators moved faster. They'd timed every second. They knew exactly how long it would take Maduro to get from his bedroom to that safe room, and they beat him there. Maduro, wearing a gray sweatsuit, was taken completely by surprise. Celia Flores was with him. Both were immediately secured, flex-cuffed, extracted from the compound. The entire assault, from touchdown to extraction, took less than 30 minutes. But it wasn't over.
As the helicopters lifted off with Maduro on board, Venezuelan forces finally responded. A firefight erupted. One American helicopter was hit by small arms fire, but the Night Stalkers didn't panic. The helicopter remained flyable. The pilot kept it in the air. The formation stayed together. By 3:29 a.m. Eastern Time, the helicopters were feet dry over the water. Maduro and Flores were aboard the USS Iwo Jima. The operation was complete. Not a single American killed, several injuries, all stable, and Venezuela's dictator was now a prisoner. Trump, watching from Mar-a-Lago, called it an incredible operation. He said the whole maneuver, the landings, the number of aircraft, the different types of helicopters and fighter jets, it was like watching a movie. But this wasn't a movie. This was real. Vice President J.D. Vance, who wasn't at the briefing due to security protocols about keeping the president and vice president separated during high-risk operations, issued his own statement. Maduro is the newest person to find out that President Trump means what he says. The president offered multiple off-ramps, but was very clear throughout this process. The drug trafficking must stop, and the stolen oil must be returned to the United States.
That last part about the oil raised eyebrows. Critics immediately jumped on it, saying this proved the operation was about Venezuela's oil reserves, not justice or counter-narcotics. Vance doubled down. He posted that Maduro has multiple indictments in the United States for narco-terrorism. You don't get to avoid justice because you live in a palace in Caracas. By Saturday afternoon, Maduro and Flores had been flown to Stewart Airport in New York. Attorney General Pam Bondi announced they would face narco-terrorism charges in the Southern District of New York. They will soon face the full wrath of American justice on American soil in American courts. But the real story isn't just what happened, it's how it happened. The months of CIA surveillance, the precision of Delta Force, the overwhelming air support, the cyber warfare component, the real-time intelligence from an asset inside Maduro's circle, the replica compound where they practiced, every element working in perfect synchronization. General Kane called it a culmination of months of planning and rehearsal. That's an understatement. This was a demonstration of American military power that hasn't been seen since the invasion of Panama to capture Manuel Noriega in 1989. And even that operation didn't involve extracting a target from the middle of a capital city while the world watched. So what does this mean? For Venezuela, chaos. For Latin America, uncertainty. For America's adversaries, a very clear message. Trump meant what he said about being willing to use military force. J.D. Vance's statement about the stolen oil suggests this administration sees Venezuela's natural resources as American property. And the flawless execution of Operation Absolute Resolve proves that if you're on America's target list, geography doesn't protect you. The question now is, who's next? Because if Delta Force can grab a sitting head of state from a fortified compound in a hostile capital, what can't they do?